The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Dr. Emma Rodriguez barely noticed. Her eyes remained fixed on the holographic display floating above her desk, showing energy readings that made no sense according to everything she knew about physics. The patterns twisted through space like invisible rivers, bending reality itself before vanishing without a trace. "Computer, run analysis pattern 7 again," she whispered, leaning closer to the swirling data. The artificial intelligence responded, in its calm voice. "Analysis complete. Energy signature remains unidentified. Source unknown. Duration: 3.7 seconds before complete disappearance." Emma rubbed her tired eyes. 3 months of detecting these impossible energy bursts near human colonies, and she was no closer to understanding them. As the lead xenobiologist aboard Horizon Base, she had access to the most advanced sensors in human space. Yet these readings defied explanation. Outside her laboratory window, the stars looked peaceful. Earth hung like a blue marble in the distance, surrounded by the gentle glow of orbital stations. Humanity had spread across dozens of systems in just 2 centuries, building a civilization that reached toward the galaxy with eager hands. Yet Emma knew they were still children in cosmic terms, barely understanding the universe around them. What she did not know was that someone had been watching them all along, in a realm that existed beside normal space, yet completely separate. From it, Thane observed the human scientist through sensors that could penetrate any barrier. His elongated form moved gracefully through the crystalline halls of the Villani monitoring station, his 4 arms working different control surfaces, while his large, dark eyes processed information at incredible speed. The Villani had perfected the art of hiding long before humans had discovered fire. Their entire civilization existed in pocket dimensions, spaces that touched the regular universe but remained invisible to all scanning methods. For over 50,000 years, they had watched other species rise and fall, never once revealing themselves. "The young ones grow more curious," Thane said to himself, watching Emma study the energy traces his people accidentally left behind. Despite their advanced hiding technology, the Villani monitoring system sometimes leaked tiny amounts of dimensional energy when they shifted between observation points. His colleague Kira approached, her movements creating soft chiming sounds from the crystal formations that grew naturally from her skin. "The Council grows concerned about these humans. They advance too quickly." Thane nodded slowly. "In 200 years, they have achieved what took most species 2,000. Their learning curve is unprecedented and dangerous," Kira added. "Remember the Althari. They also developed rapidly before they destroyed themselves with quantum weapons." The memory sent a chill through Thane. The Althari had been brilliant, creative, and utterly reckless. Their final experiment had torn a hole in space-time that consumed their entire solar system. The Villani had watched it happen from their hidden dimension, following their ancient law of non-interference even as an entire civilization died. "The humans are different," Thane argued, though he could not explain why he felt this way. "They show remarkable cooperation despite their conflicts. Look at how they share technology and resources across their colonies." Kira's expression remained doubtful. "They still fight wars among themselves. They pollute their homeworld. They create weapons capable of destroying entire planets. Yet they also create art, music, and literature that moves the soul," Thane replied. "They risk their lives to save strangers. They dream of exploring the galaxy not to conquer, but to learn." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent signal from the monitoring center. Elder Nara's voice echoed through the station, cold and commanding. "All observers report to the central chamber immediately. We have detected movement in the outer spiral arm." Thane and Kira exchanged worried glances. The outer spiral arm had been empty for centuries, purged clean by a force that even the Villani feared to name directly. If something was moving there, again, it could only mean one thing. The central chamber was a vast sphere lined with monitoring screens showing every inhabited system in the galaxy. Hundreds of Vellani observers had gathered, their crystalline skin catching and reflecting the light from countless displays. At the center stood Elder Nara, her ancient form bearing the scars of wisdom earned over millennia. "The hegemony stirs," she announced, and silence fell across the chamber like a physical weight. Images appeared on the central display showing massive ships emerging from the dead zone of the outer spiral. The vessels were ugly things, built from the bones of conquered worlds and powered by technologies that fed on death itself. Each ship grew stronger with every civilization it destroyed, becoming more dangerous with each victory. "How many?" someone asked. "Thousands," Elder Nara replied. "More than we have ever seen in one fleet. Their destination appears to be the inner systems." Thane felt ice in his veins. The inner systems included human space. "We follow the ancient law," Elder Nara continued. "We observe but do not interfere. The young species must face their fate as all others have done." "And if the humans fall?" Kira asked quietly. "Then they were not meant to survive," the elder replied without emotion. "The galaxy will continue as it always has." But as the assembly dispersed, Thane remained behind, staring at the images of human worlds displayed across dozens of screens. He watched families walking through parks on colony worlds, children playing in the streets of orbital stations, scientists like Emma working late into the night to expand the boundaries of knowledge. For the first time in his long life, Thane questioned the wisdom of the ancient law. The Vellani had survived by hiding, by remaining apart from the great struggles that shaped the galaxy. But survival was not the same as living, and watching good people die when you had the power to help them felt like a form of death itself. On Horizon Base, Emma finally gave up on her analysis and prepared to leave her laboratory. As she gathered her data tablets, the sensors detected another energy burst stronger than any before. For just a moment, the readings showed a clear pattern, almost like a message. Then it was gone, leaving only questions and the growing certainty that humanity was not alone in the universe. Neither the human scientist nor the alien observer knew that their fates were about to become intertwined in ways that would change both their species forever. The hegemony was coming, and the choice between survival and conscience would soon test the very foundations of what it meant to be truly alive in an often heartless universe. Admiral David Park had seen war before, but nothing in his 40 years of military service had prepared him for the reports streaming across his command screen. Entire star systems were going dark along the outer rim, their signals simply stopping without any distress calls or explanations. "Show me the timeline again," he ordered from his position at the central command table of Defense Station Alpha. Lieutenant Torres manipulated the holographic display, showing the progression of silent worlds. First contact lost with the mining colony at Ross 128, then the research outpost at Wolf 359. Each system goes quiet exactly 72 hours after the previous one. That suggests a coordinated attack moving at a specific speed, Park observed, his weathered face grim. "Computer, calculate the trajectory and estimate when this phenomenon will reach our core systems." The artificial intelligence processed the data quickly. "Based on current progression, the phenomenon will reach the outer defense perimeter in approximately 6 weeks. Park felt a chill despite the warm air of the command center. 6 weeks to prepare for an enemy they knew nothing about, using tactics they had never seen before. Meanwhile, in the hidden realm of the Vellani, Thane stood before the Grand Council, his crystalline skin dim with worry. The council chamber was ancient beyond human comprehension, its walls carved from living stone that recorded the memories of their people. Here, decisions were made that affected the fate of entire galaxies. Elder Nara spoke from her position, at the head of the crescent-shaped assembly. "The hegemony follows its traditional pattern. They will strip each system of all life before moving to the next, nothing will remain. How long before they reach human space? Asked Council Member Vec, his tone carefully neutral. At their current rate of consumption, approximately 45 standard cycles, Nara replied. The humans will detect their approach long before then, of course. But their technology is insufficient to mount any meaningful defense. Thane stepped forward, his forearms spread in a gesture of formal address. Honored Council, I request permission to present new findings about the human species. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. It was unusual for an observer to request formal presentation time, especially about a species marked for observation only. Elder Nara's expression remained cold. Proceed, but be brief. The Council has more pressing matters to discuss. Thane activated a holographic display showing detailed scans of human neural activity. The humans possess a unique quantum resonance pattern in their brain tissue. This pattern appears to be connected to their remarkable creativity and adaptability. Interesting, but irrelevant, Nara replied dismissively. Many species show unusual neural patterns. This is different, Thane insisted. Our deep scans suggest that human neural energy operates on the same frequency as hegemony power cores. In theory, human consciousness could disrupt their death-feeding technology. The chamber fell silent. For thousands of years, no force had been found capable of stopping the hegemony. They grew stronger with each conquest, their ships literally feeding on the destruction they caused. Entire galactic civilizations had fallen to their unstoppable advance. Council member Kira leaned forward. Are you suggesting that humans could be weaponized against the hegemony? I am suggesting they might be the key to stopping them permanently, Thane replied. But only if we provide assistance. Elder Nara's eyes blazed with anger. The sacred law forbids interference. We have maintained our survival for 50 millennia by remaining hidden. Would you have us reveal ourselves and risk extinction for a species we barely understand? I would have us remember that survival without purpose is merely a slow form of death, Thane replied, his voice steady despite the gasps from other council members. Never before had anyone dared challenge the sacred law so directly. Back on Defense Station Alpha, Admiral Park was dealing with his own impossible situation. Long-range sensors had finally detected something in the outer darkness, but the readings made no sense. Sir, we're picking up massive energy signatures at the edge of scanner range, reported Lieutenant Torres. The objects appear to be artificial, but they're larger than anything in our databases. How large? The smallest vessels are approximately 10 kilometers in length. The largest... Torres paused, checking her readings again. The largest appears to be over 100 kilometers long. Park felt his stomach drop. The largest human warship was barely 2 kilometers from nose to tail. How many ships total? Sensors indicate at least 3,000 vessels, possibly more. The formation is so dense that individual contacts are difficult to separate. Time to intercept? At current speed, they will reach our outer perimeter in 38 days. Park immediately activated the emergency communication system. All defense stations, all fleet commands, all colony governors. This is Admiral Park with a priority alpha alert. We are facing an invasion force of unprecedented size. All military units are to report to stations immediately. All civilian transports are ordered to begin evacuation procedures for outer rim colonies. The message would take hours to reach the furthest human settlements, but it was the best he could do. Humanity was about to face its greatest test, and they were woefully unprepared. In the Villani Council chamber, the debate continued with increasing intensity. The ancient protocols had never been challenged so openly, and many council members were unsure how to respond. The humans will fight, Thane continued. Their entire history shows a species that refuses to surrender even in hopeless situations. But courage alone cannot defeat the hegemony. They need our technology, our knowledge of dimensional warfare. And in return, we would expose ourselves to every predator species in the galaxy. Nara countered. The hegemony are not the only threat. We have hidden from the devourers, the mind thieves, the entropy cult. All would turn their attention to us the moment we revealed ourselves. Then we are already dead, Kira said quietly, causing shocked silence throughout the chamber. If the hegemony continues to grow stronger, eventually they will develop the technology to find us anyway. Our hiding will only delay the inevitable. Elder Nara's expression hardened. The decision is made. We observe but do not interfere. This discussion is closed. But as the council dispersed, Thane noticed that several younger members approached Kira with whispered conversations. The sacred law might be absolute, but it was not universally supported. On Defense Station Alpha, Park worked through the night, coordinating humanity's desperate preparations. Every available ship was being recalled, every defensive platform was being armed, every colony was being evacuated or fortified. Yet in his heart, he knew it would not be enough. The approaching fleet was simply too large, too advanced, too powerful for humanity's young military to resist. As he stared out at the stars, Park wondered if anyone out there might be willing to help. Humanity had always assumed they were alone in the galaxy, but recent energy anomalies suggested otherwise. If there were other intelligent species watching, would any of them care enough about humanity's fate to act? The answer to that question was being debated in a realm he could never imagine, by beings he had never dreamed existed. And the outcome of that debate would determine whether humanity survived to see another dawn or joined the countless extinct civilizations that had fallen before the hegemony's endless hunger. Time was running out for both species, and the choices made in the coming days would echo through eternity. The evacuation alarms had been screaming for 6 hours straight when Captain Riley Thompson received the order that would change everything. Her ship, the destroyer Defiance, was part of the last defense line protecting the civilian transports, fleeing from Kepler Colony. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," reported her tactical officer. "Count is over 200 vessels, all massive signatures." Riley gripped her command chair as the main screen filled with the approaching hegemony fleet. The ships were nightmares made real, their hulls constructed from the twisted metal of conquered worlds. Dark energy crackled between their weapon arrays, and Riley could swear she heard screaming in the static of her communications system. "All ships, this is Defiance Actual," she broadcast to the small human fleet. "Remember your training. Protect the civilian ships at all costs." The first exchange of fire lasted less than 30 seconds. Human plasma bolts struck the hegemony, vessels with perfect accuracy, but the energy seemed to be absorbed into their hulls, making them glow brighter. In response, the enemy weapons tore through human shields like they were made of paper. Riley watched in horror as 3 destroyers exploded in sequence, their crews of 600 each dying in brilliant flashes of light. But something impossible happened next. The hegemony ships grew visibly larger, their hulls expanding as they fed on the death energy. "Fall back to defensive position Gamma," Riley ordered, but she knew it was hopeless. Every human death made the enemy stronger. In his hidden observation post, Thane watched the slaughter with growing anguish. The humans fought with remarkable courage, but their weapons were useless against an enemy that literally fed on destruction. Each exploding ship sent waves of death energy into the hegemony fleet, powering their growth. Without conscious thought, Thane reached for his dimensional controls. A subtle gravitational wave pushed the civilian transport Harmony, just far enough off course that the hegemony beam meant to destroy it passed through empty space instead. Another gentle nudge guided Captain Thompson's destroyer away from a cluster of enemy missiles. The interventions were small, barely detectable, but they saved lives. "What are you doing?" Kira's voice came from behind him. Thane did not turn around. "What I must. The council will exile you for this. You know the sacred law." "The sacred law is wrong," Thane replied, his hands still working the controls. "I cannot watch good people die when I have the power to help them." On the bridge of Defiance, Riley stared at her tactical display in confusion. Computer, analyze the gravitational anomalies around our position. Analysis indicates localized space-time distortions of unknown origin. Pattern suggests intelligent control. Riley's eyes widened. The impossible energy readings that Dr. Rodriguez had been tracking, the mysterious gravitational waves. Someone was out there, someone was helping them. All ships, pattern Delta 7, she ordered. If invisible allies were guiding them, she would work with whatever help they could get. Back in the Vellani realm, Council Member Vec burst into Thane's observation chamber. By order of Elder Nara, you are to cease all interference immediately and report for judgment. Thane finally turned from his controls. Tell the Elder that I formally renounce my position as observer. I claim the ancient right of personal conscience. Vec stepped backward in shock. The right of personal conscience had not been invoked in over 10,000 years. It meant that Thane was choosing exile from Vellani society, giving up everything he had ever known. You would throw away 50,000 years of survival wisdom for these humans? Vec asked. I would choose to be alive rather than merely surviving, Thane replied. Meanwhile, Dr. Emma Rodriguez was experiencing her own revelation aboard Horizon Base. The research station had been evacuated except for essential personnel, but Emma had refused to leave. Her sensors were detecting energy patterns unlike anything in the database. Computer, focus all scanners on grid reference 7 Alpha, she commanded. The display showed empty space, but the energy readings were off the charts. Something was there. Something that bent light and gravity around itself like a cloak. As Emma adjusted the sensor frequency, trying to penetrate whatever was hiding in that region of space, she did not notice the hegemony patrol ship that had broken through the defense line and was now targeting her station. The attack beam lanced out toward Horizon Base, carrying enough energy to vaporize the entire structure. Emma looked up just in time to see death approaching at the speed of light. Then reality folded. Space twisted around the research station like water around a stone. The hegemony beam passed through the area where Horizon Base had been, but the station was no longer there. It existed in the same location, but shifted slightly out of normal space-time. Emma found herself surrounded by crystalline walls that hummed with harmonious energy. The air itself seemed to sing, and gravity felt different, lighter somehow. Standing before her was a being unlike anything in human imagination. Thane was tall and graceful, his 4 arms moving in complex patterns as he worked controls that seemed to grow from the living walls. His skin was translucent crystal that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns, and his large dark eyes held depths of ancient wisdom. Do not be afraid, he said, and his voice was like music. You are safe here. Emma's scientific mind raced even as she struggled with the impossibility of the situation. You're the source of the energy readings. You've been watching us. My people have been watching all species for millennia, Thane confirmed. But I am no longer of my people. I have chosen to help yours. Why? Emma asked, though part of her was still convinced this was all an elaborate hallucination. Thane paused in his work, considering the question. Because you create beauty in the face of darkness. Because you hope when hope is foolish. Because you are worth saving. One person cannot save an entire species, Emma said. No, Thane agreed. But one person can choose to try. And sometimes, that choice inspires others. As if summoned by his words, Kira materialized in the chamber, her crystalline form shimmering into existence. The council has voted. You are exiled. All ties to our people severed. Thane nodded calmly. I expected nothing else. However, Kira continued, and her voice carried a note of excitement, 17 council members have chosen to invoke personal conscience and join your exile. We believe the humans are worth the risk. Emma looked back and forth between the Two aliens, beginning to understand that she was witnessing a moment of historic importance. An entire civilization was splitting apart, choosing between ancient safety and uncertain hope. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Thane smiled, an expression that somehow translated perfectly across species. "We need you to help us build something that has never existed before, a weapon that can permanently stop the hegemony. But it will require cooperation between our species and time we do not have." Outside, the battle for humanity's survival continued. Captain Thompson and her remaining ships fought a running retreat, trying to buy time for the civilian evacuations. Every minute they held the line meant thousands more lives saved, but the hegemony fleet continued to grow stronger with each human death, and there were so many more ships emerging from hyperspace. The outer colonies were falling one by one, their populations either killed or enslaved to feed the enemy's terrible hunger. Admiral Park coordinated the defense from his command center, knowing that each order he gave might be condemning good people to death. The weight of command had never felt heavier. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Horizon Base," Lieutenant Torres reported. "I thought the station was evacuated." "So did we, sir. But the signal is definitely coming from their location." Park activated the communication link, expecting to hear Dr. Rodriguez requesting evacuation. Instead, her voice carried an excitement he had never heard before. "Admiral, I need you to prepare the fleet for something unprecedented. We have allies, and they have a plan." "Allies?" Park asked. "Who?" "People who have been hiding in the shadows for 50,000 years, waiting for the right moment to step into the light. And Admiral, they think humanity might be the key to stopping this enemy permanently." For the first time since the invasion began, Admiral Park allowed himself to feel a spark of hope. Humanity was not alone after all, and their new allies had chosen to risk everything to help them. The real war was about to begin. The emergency meeting took place in a location that should not have existed, a conference room that existed between dimensions, accessible only through Volani technology. Admiral Park sat across from beings that 3 days ago he would have dismissed as impossible, while holographic displays showed the steady advance of the hegemony fleet. "Your ships feed on death," Dr. Emma Rodriguez said, addressing the Volani engineer named Kira. "Every time we destroy one of their vessels, the rest of the fleet grows stronger." Kira's crystalline form pulsed with soft light as she responded. "Precisely. The hegemony discovered long ago how to convert the quantum energy released by dying consciousness into raw power. It makes them essentially unstoppable through conventional warfare." Admiral Park leaned forward in his chair. "But you said humans have some kind of unique property that could change this?" Thane manipulated the holographic display, showing detailed scans of human brain activity. Human neural patterns generate quantum resonance at exactly the same frequency as hegemony power cores. In theory, a focused burst of human consciousness could create destructive interference, permanently disrupting their energy collection system. "In theory," Park repeated. "What about in practice?" "We would need to build a device we are calling the resonance disruptor," Kira explained. "It would amplify human neural energy and broadcast it across the hegemony fleet simultaneously. The feedback should cause cascading failures in their power systems." Emma studied the technical specifications floating in the air before her. "This would require volunteers to link their minds directly to the device. What would happen to them?" The silence that followed told her everything she needed to know. "The energy drain would be enormous," Thane said quietly. "Most volunteers would not survive the process." "How many would we need?" Park asked. "Minimum effective broadcast would require approximately 500 volunteers," Kira replied. "Optimal effectiveness would require 2,000. Park felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a lead blanket. He was being asked to approve a weapon that would kill thousands of his own people to use. "There has to be another way," Emma said. "If there were, we would not be having this conversation." Thane replied gently. My people have been hiding from the hegemony for millennia, because we found no other solution. Meanwhile, in the rapidly shrinking zone of human-controlled space, Captain Riley Thompson was learning firsthand just how desperate their situation had become. Her destroyer Defiance was now part of a combined fleet defending the approach to Earth itself. Captain, we're receiving evacuation requests from 17 colony worlds, her communications officer reported. Transport capacity is insufficient. For full population removal, Riley stared at the tactical display showing hegemony forces systematically consuming the outer settlements. Every few hours, another red dot disappeared from the map, representing millions of human lives. Signal Fleet Command, she ordered. Request permission to attempt rescue operations at the Titan mining facility. Ma'am, intelligence reports indicate that facility is already under attack. Then we go in fighting. Prepare the ship for combat acceleration. Back in the interdimensional conference room, the conversation had turned to logistics. Building the resonance disruptor would require resources from both civilizations and a level of cooperation that neither species had ever attempted. The device must be constructed in normal space-time to function properly, Kira explained. But the moment we begin building, the hegemony will detect our dimensional technology and focus their entire fleet on stopping us. How long would construction take? Park asked. Working around the clock with both human and Villani engineers, approximately 8 days, Thane replied. And how long until the hegemony reaches Earth? 12 days, assuming they maintain current consumption rates. Emma ran calculations in her head. That gives us a 4-day margin for error. What if something goes wrong during construction? Then humanity dies, Kira said bluntly. Along with my people, when the hegemony eventually discovers our hiding places. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from the main Villani council chamber. Elder Nara's image appeared in the center of the room, her ancient face twisted with fury. Thane of the third observation, you have committed the ultimate violation of our sacred law. Not only have you revealed our existence, but you now actively collaborate with an alien species. I have chosen to help save lives rather than watch them die, Thane replied calmly. You have chosen to doom us all, Nara shot back. The traditional faction has voted. Any Villani who continues to assist in this madness will be stripped of all dimensional privileges and exiled to normal space permanently. Several of the Villani engineers around the table looked uncomfortable. Being trapped in normal space-time was effectively a death sentence for their species. Kira stood up, her crystalline skin flaring with bright light. Then I choose exile. These humans fight for something greater than mere survival. They fight for the right to exist freely in the universe that is worth any sacrifice. One by one, 16 other Villani engineers made the same choice, formally severing their ties to their civilization to help humanity build the weapon that might save both species. Elder Nara's image flickered with rage. You are all dead to us. The traditional faction will retreat to the deep dimensions where neither the hegemony nor your foolishness can reach us. As her image disappeared, Thane felt a profound sadness. His people were splitting apart, perhaps forever, because he had chosen conscience over conformity. I am sorry, Admiral Park said quietly. We never wanted to cause division among your people. You did not cause this, Thane replied. This division has been growing for millennia. We have simply reached the point where it could no longer be ignored. Emma stood up and moved to one of the technical displays. If we're going to do this, we need to start immediately. Where do we build this device? I recommend the shipyards at Luna Station, Park suggested. Maximum security, best engineering. Facilities close enough to Earth for rapid deployment. And when word gets out about what we're building? Emma asked. We'll have volunteers, Park said with quiet certainty. Humans have never lacked for people willing to sacrifice themselves for others. Over the next 3 days, the most unusual construction project in galactic history began to take shape in the industrial bays of Luna Station. Human engineers worked alongside crystalline aliens whose technology seemed to grow rather than be built. Massive resonance chambers took shape, designed to amplify human consciousness and broadcast it across interstellar distances. Captain Thompson arrived at Luna Station with her ship badly damaged from the rescue operations at Titan. She had managed to save 3,000 colonists, but the cost had been heavy. Half her crew was dead, and Defiance would never fly again. "I want to volunteer for the Disruptor Project," she told Admiral Park as soon as she was debriefed. "Riley, you've done enough. More than enough." "Sir, with respect, that's not your decision to make. Those colonists I saved have children who deserve a future. If there's a chance this weapon can give them one, I need to be part of it." Park looked at the young captain and saw the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars. "The survival rate is estimated at less than 20%. "Then I'll be in the 20%, sir. Word of the project spread despite all security measures." Within 48 hours, over 10,000 humans had volunteered to power the resonance disruptor. They came from every walk of life, soldiers and civilians, young and old, people who understood that sometimes the greatest victory required the ultimate sacrifice. Emma worked alongside Thane in the central control chamber, watching human and Villani technology merge in ways that neither species had thought possible. The device was beautiful in its complexity, crystalline growth patterns channeling pure energy through circuits that resembled living neural networks. "Will it work?" she asked during a brief rest period. "The mathematics are sound," Thane replied. "But mathematics cannot account for the strength of human will. That is the variable we cannot calculate." "Then we'll have to trust in what makes us human," Emma said. Outside, long-range sensors detected the hegemony fleet entering the Sol system. The final battle was about to begin, and everything would depend on whether courage and sacrifice could overcome the darkness that had consumed so many worlds. The weapon was ready, the volunteers were prepared, and somewhere in the space between dimensions, two species that had never met before waited to see if their desperate alliance could save them both from extinction. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts, their massive forms blotting out the stars around Jupiter. Admiral Park watched from the command bridge of Luna Station as his sensors counted the enemy vessels. Over 4,000 ships, each one grown fat on the death of human colonies. "Sir, they're not attacking immediately," Lieutenant Torres reported. "Long-range scans suggest they're feeding on the outer system installations first." Park nodded grimly. The automated mining stations and research outposts were being consumed to strengthen the fleet before the final assault. The hegemony always followed the same pattern: grow stronger, then strike decisively. In the resonance disruptor chamber, 2,000 volunteers were making their final preparations. Captain Riley Thompson stood at the primary connection point, her hands resting on the crystalline interface that would link her consciousness to the weapon. Around her, men and women from every human world prepared to give their lives for their species. Dr. Emma Rodriguez moved through the crowd, checking the biomonitoring equipment that would track each volunteer's condition during the process. The readings were grim. Medical analysis suggested that only about 400 people would survive the neural drain required to power the device. "Are you afraid?" she asked Thompson quietly. The captain smiled, though her eyes held the weight of command. "Terrified. But my fear doesn't matter. What matters is that somewhere out there, children are looking up at the stars and dreaming of the day they'll explore them. This gives them that chance." Thane worked at the central control station, his forearms dancing across interfaces that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. Beside him, Kira monitored the dimensional stability of the weapon. One miscalculation could tear a hole in space-time that would consume the entire solar system. "Human neural patterns are showing remarkable coherence," Kira observed. Even in the face of certain death, their minds remain focused and unified. That is what makes them unique, Thane replied. Other species scatter their thoughts when facing extinction. Humans become more focused. The communication system crackled to life with Admiral Park's voice. All volunteers, this is Admiral Park. The hegemony fleet is beginning its final approach. We estimate 8 hours until they reach Earth. The resonance disruptor is charged and ready. I want you all to know that what you're doing today will be remembered for as long as humanity exists among the stars. Captain Thompson activated her personal communicator. Admiral, we're ready down here. Begin the countdown whenever you give the order. Understood, Captain. And Riley, it's been an honor serving with you. The honor has been mine, sir. As the hours passed, the combined human-Volani fleet took up defensive positions around Earth. Every available ship had been recalled, from massive battlecruisers to tiny patrol craft. They formed a protective shell around their homeworld, knowing they could not win a conventional battle, but hoping to buy time for the disruptor to work. The hegemony advance was methodical and terrifying. Their ships moved through space like living things, their hulls pulsing with absorbed death energy. Scouts reported that the largest vessels had grown to nearly 200 kilometers in length, swollen with the life force of conquered worlds. Enemy fleet has entered optimal range. For the resonance disruptor, Kira announced. All targets are within the effective broadcast area. Thane looked up from his controls. Human volunteers are showing peak neural coherence. If we're going to do this, now is the time. Admiral Park's voice echoed throughout Luna Station. All hands prepare for resonance disruptor activation. Volunteers, link when ready. In the chamber, 2,000 humans placed their hands on the crystalline interfaces. The connections formed instantly, linking their minds to the weapon's quantum core. Emma watched the bio readings spike as each person's consciousness was drawn into the collective neural pattern. Captain Thompson felt the connection form like electricity running through her thoughts. Suddenly, she could sense the minds of every other volunteer, their hopes and fears and determination blending into a single focused purpose. She could feel the weapon itself, a crystalline entity that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions she could not comprehend. Neural link established, she reported, though her voice seemed to come from very far away. All volunteers connected and stable. The hegemony fleet detected the energy buildup and immediately changed course, abandoning their methodical advance. For a direct assault on Earth, they recognized the threat and knew they had to stop it before the weapon could fire. Enemy fleet is accelerating, reported the tactical officer. Impact with our defensive line in 40 minutes. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Hold the line at all costs. Whatever happens, the disruptor must be allowed to complete its firing. Sequence. The space around Earth erupted into battle. Human ships threw themselves at the hegemony fleet with desperate courage, their weapons having little effect but their sacrifice buying precious time. Each destroyed human vessel fed energy to the enemy, but also bought another few minutes for the weapon to charge. In the disruptor chamber, the volunteers were beginning to pay the price for their courage. The neural drain was enormous, pulling life force directly from their minds to power the quantum resonance field. Emma watched in anguish as the first volunteers began to collapse, their bio readings flatlined as their consciousness was consumed by the weapon. We're losing them too fast, she called to Thane. At this rate, we won't have enough neural energy to complete the firing sequence. Captain Thompson felt the deaths of her fellow volunteers like physical blows, but she forced herself to maintain focus. Through the neural link, she could sense the weapon's needs, feel how much more energy it required to reach critical resonance. All remaining volunteers, she broadcast through the link. We need to increase the power flow. I know it will hurt, but we have to give everything we have. One by one, the surviving volunteers opened their minds completely to the weapon, allowing it to draw their life force without reservation. The bio readings spiked as hundreds more people sacrificed themselves to power humanity's last hope. The space battle was going badly. Despite their courage, the human fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that grew stronger with each kill. Admiral Park watched from his command center as ship after ship disappeared from his tactical display. "Sir, the hegemony. Flagship is breaking through our defensive line," Lieutenant Torres reported. "It's heading directly for Luna Station." Park could see the massive enemy vessel on his screens, a nightmare of twisted metal and dark energy that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. If it reached the station before the disruptor could fire, everything would be lost. All remaining ships converge on the flagship, stop it at any cost. The last dozen human vessels threw themselves at the hegemony flagship in a desperate kamikaze attack. Their deaths fed even more power to the enemy ship, but their sacrifice bought the final minutes needed for the weapon to reach critical charge. In the disruptor chamber, Captain Thompson was one of only 300 volunteers still alive. She could feel her own life draining away, but she could also sense that the weapon was almost ready. The quantum resonance field had reached 97% of optimal power. "Firing sequence initiated," Kira announced. "Resonance cascade building to critical threshold." Thane's hands moved across his controls with desperate precision. "Field coherence at 99%. Preparing to broadcast. The hegemony flagship." Reached Luna Station just as the resonance disruptor achieved full power. Its weapons charged to destroy the station and end humanity's last hope. But it was too late. Captain Thompson felt the weapon's consciousness merge completely with her own. In the final moment, through the quantum field, she could sense every hegemony ship in the fleet, feel their alien thoughts and their hunger for death. And she could feel the resonance frequency that would destroy them all. "For humanity," she whispered, and triggered the final firing sequence. The resonance disruptor released its stored energy in a pulse that traveled faster than light, carrying the focused will of 2,000 human minds across the entire hegemony fleet. The wave hit the enemy ships simultaneously, their power cores resonating in destructive harmony with the broadcast frequency. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Every hegemony vessel began to tear itself apart as their death-feeding technology turned on itself. The energy they had stolen from countless civilizations was released all at once, creating explosions that lit up the solar system like a second sun. Admiral Park watched in amazement as the entire enemy fleet simply disintegrated, their ships consumed by the very power that had made them invincible. The quantum cascade effect spread beyond the Sol system, seeking out every hegemony vessel in the galaxy and destroying them all. In the disruptor chamber, Captain Thompson smiled as she felt her consciousness finally fade. Through the weapon's sensors, she could see Earth safe in the distance, its blue surface unmarked by war. Children would look up at those stars and dream of exploring them, just as she had hoped. The silence after the battle was profound. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was free from the hegemony's hunger. Hundreds of enslaved worlds were suddenly liberated, their populations free to rebuild their civilizations. Dr. Emma Rodriguez stood among the crystalline remains of the resonance disruptor, surrounded by the peaceful faces of the volunteers who had given everything for their species. Only 412 had survived the neural drain, but their sacrifice had saved not just humanity, but every free species in the galaxy. Thane approached her quietly, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion. "It is over. The hegemony is gone forever." "At such a cost," Emma replied, tears streaming down her face. "A cost they chose freely," Thane reminded her. "They knew what they were doing and they did it anyway. That is what makes your species so remarkable." In the days that followed, the galaxy began to change. The Villani emerged from their hidden dimensions to share their knowledge with humanity and other species. New alliances formed between civilizations that had never known of each other's existence. The age of hiding and fear was ending, replaced by an era of cooperation and exploration. Admiral Park stood in the memorial garden that was built on Luna Station, reading the names of the 2,000 volunteers who had saved the galaxy. Captain Riley Thompson's name was first on the list, followed by farmers and teachers, engineers, and artists, people from every walk of life who had chosen courage over survival. They died so that others could live freely, he said to Emma, who had become the first human ambassador to the Villani. They didn't just die, Emma replied, watching the stars through the memorial's transparent dome. They proved that some things are worth any sacrifice. They showed the galaxy what humanity really is. The universe was vast and full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and thanks to the courage of those who had given everything, both human and Villani children would grow up free to explore it all, carrying the legacy of heroes who had risked everything to save not just their own species, but the very concept of freedom itself. The most reclusive aliens in the galaxy had indeed risked everything to save humanity, but in the end, it was humanity that had saved them all.